Hello and welcome to Honda Scouting Grounds 2020. I'm Freak, joined by Alorum, Kangas, and Mark Z to bring you all the day's action as 20 hopefuls take to the Rift with dreams of being drafted by LCS orgs at the end of the day. How's it going, everyone?
It's going good. I'm excited to watch the latest batch of NA talent and see what they have to show for us. And then, of course, my favorite part is at the end of the day with the draft.
Yeah, where you can boo Commissioner Greeley, as is tradition every year. So before we dive into the games themselves, let's take a look at who these 20 players are, who we're talking about over this weekend.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of names on the screen for everybody watching at home, and if you haven't been paying attention throughout the Scouting Ground circuit that happened over the summer leading up to this event, or the games that happened earlier this week, I want to direct your attention right to the jungle, and one name in particular, NXI. You might have heard about this guy. Really, really hot young talent right now in North America, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, there's only three things in this life I'm afraid of, and that's death, failure, and NXI with a tank in front of him. This guy is absolutely insane as a carry player. If you put him on the Nidalee, put him on the Graves, he's going to carry you in games, and that's what we've been seeing throughout the entire week.
All right, and I want to direct us to top lane as our resident top lane expert. There are four guys we're looking out for, and two in specific that have caught a lot of people's eye is Tony Top and Niles. Niles has a lot of competitive experience on Maryville. He's a collegiate champion, and many people think that he's the best top laner in amateur, and I'd agree. Tony Top, solo queue superstar. He plays all day long. I play with that guy all the time. 1000 LP player. Tony Top and Niles, very mechanical players. We can see the Jace, we can see the Jax, Fiora, Camille. They come out from both of them, and they're super good with their hands, so I'm excited to see what they can do.
Good hands. For me, the position I'm looking at, and I think would be most recognizable for a lot of people who are tuning in who are LCS fans, would probably be the support position. You have Joey, you have Shady, you have Otto as well, role swapping from AD to support. And Shady in particular has looked incredible this tournament. I think you could put him up as potentially the best looking player in the entire event. He has been all over the map, roaming, getting plays done. He's up in top lane. He's up at the Rift Herald, which is exactly what you want to see after watching the World Championship and seeing how active a lot of the supports were. It's a great look for him and a big reason why Team Infernal is currently undefeated, not in games, but in terms of best of threes.
Yeah, you mentioned the teams they landed on, the best of these they are playing. These teams were all competing together. They've been drafted into makeshift teams for the week's games. Here are the makeshift Dragon teams they landed on as part of the Dragon Draft. Each of these sort of Dragon Drafts orgs are headed by a 2 or 3 LCS orgs, drafted on teams, and Kanga's going to start with you. What are you seeing here with these teams you care about?
Well, I mean, obviously, going into the event, everyone was hyped up about Team Ocean, saying, okay, this team, I mean, yes, NXI is highlighted, but you got Yan, Yunbi, Joey, even Rodov up there, some pretty hype names from the amateur scene. Everyone was thinking that they were going to go the whole way and were favorites to win, but Infernal have showed up huge, and they've only dropped 3 games out of all their best of 5s yet to lose a single match. I think that's really exciting going into this finals here today. And I just want to give a shout out to Niles over on Team Cloud. Alorum, I know you were highlighting him as a player to watch, one of the hype players. Wow. He hasn't had the best performance so far in this event. I think a big part of it has to do with the draft, but also just the fact that there's so many amateur players in this event. Throughout the whole summer, Maryville performed very well in the amateur circuit, but not as well as they did in collegiate. In collegiate, they're dominant, right? No one can really hold a candle to them. But in amateur, people realized, for Niles in particular, you just got to gank him early, put him behind early on, and he struggles to come back if he doesn't have an earlier lead. But if he has that lead, he's scary. So he's still not somebody you can sleep on for today, but I think that people just started to figure out how to shut that player down.
Yeah, ultimately, his team on Cloud got 3rd overall in the group stage, double round-robin best of 3s. They're going to be playing some finals matches today. So here is how the week went for these 4 teams. As I mentioned, Cloud in 3rd. But let's talk about who's been facing off and who's going to face off today specifically. Up first, we have that 3rd, 4th place match between Cloud and Mountain. And that's going to be followed by the 2 vying for first with Infernal versus Ocean.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the final, and I'm sure we'll dig into it a little bit more, but a lot of good jungle play from the number 1 and number 2 teams, both with Tomio and NXI stepping up huge. So that's going to be a really nice capper to the day.
Now, of course, not only do we have these matches going on the day, but the real end of it all is going to be the draft. These 2 best of 3s, of course, important though as well. But each LCS org gets an opportunity to draft one of these players in reverse order from how the regular season went back in summer. So, Mark, going to you right away. Talk to me about what this is going to look like with the draft heading into 2021.
I mean, it's going to be super important because there's a bunch of changes happening as well to the entire amateur and academy scene. They're kind of getting folded in together. Academy is still its own thing, but there's also these amateur tournaments going on, and LCS teams can now also field an amateur team. And then over the course of the year, these teams will be able to play tournaments and kind of rise up through the tiers, and eventually the academy teams are also going to start getting seeded into these tournaments, which will have a big capper at the end of the year. And so, if you want to have multiple teams, you can now as an LCS org. And if you're looking to sign some players, the draft is a great place to start picking up some of these young, impressive talents to build your rosters around.
And real quick, so because these drafts are going to be happening, I want to get a short list of players you think are going to be worth looking at with the draft. So, Lorem, who's your top prospect?
All right, this is coming from Immortals alumni. Immortals, 10th place finish last split, so they get the first pick. And I think they have their eyes set straight on Niles. It doesn't matter what he's going to do today. Though I know some staff on Immortals that have been hyping him up for so long, and I believe in the hype. I think Niles is a great player, and so I think no matter what today, Immortals have already got their pen in their hand writing the name Niles on the contract.
Kangas?
Lorem's just predicting that he's not going to have a job going for it here, I suppose. But, I mean, I'll respect it, man. I'll respect it. I agree. I think that Niles would be a great pickup for Immortals in particular. I want to see this player in LCS, or at least in Academy, just because we've seen him in Collegiate for so long, and he's been so good for so long, even making it to the finals of the ICC. Did get swept by China, but, I mean, our region has a history of that.
Yeah.
But in general, he has so much potential to him that I think seeing him in at least Academy would be a breath of fresh air for the region.
Who stands out to you, Mark?
For me, I was going to, kind of hinted at some of the junglers, NXI and APA. Given the updates, they're going to be people that you can, even if you think they're a little raw right now, you can still potentially draft them and put on an amateur team. Orgs like Team Liquid, TSM, 100 Thieves with 100 Thieves Next. Like, there's been a history of orgs willing to have multiple teams, and securing a player that you're not going to want to run on Academy, which can be seen as more of a potentially substitute position to bring up should your LCS teams come into some struggles. Having them in the Academy part to be developing is a good another option and layer to your org.
And Kangas, who do you have your eye on?
I'm going to have to double down on the junglers here. I'm not choosing NXI because I know we're going to talk about him a lot today.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, everyone just strap in. You're going to hear that name a few times. But I want to highlight another jungler who's kind of surprised us all here, and that's Tomio. When you looked at the difference between Team Ocean and Team Infernal, the biggest discrepancy that we were looking at is the junglers. Everyone was expecting NXI would just, stop Tomio when it comes to the jungle matchup, but that has not been the case. Tomio is the only true solo queue player coming into the event. Everyone else has participated either in the scouting ground circuit or on an amateur team here or there throughout the past year. Tomio, he signed with Zenith 11 days ago, but hasn't actually really competed on a team in a team environment. So I think that teams, LCS teams in particular, need to be looking at this player, because if he's able to pop off here in the finals, showing, hey, I came from solo queue and just won scouting grounds, when you're playing against all these other players that have this 5-man experience, that just speaks volumes to the skill of this player.
Yeah, a lot of excellent plays, of course, to talk about. And at the end of the day, there's going to be one crowned above all of them, to be honest. These people are all fighting together. Half of them are going to be looking at getting drafted. But there's going to be a Honda MVP who takes home a very coveted Elder Drake statue. It's just one of the long line of statues won by NA players.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have as many choices for this kind of statues you can win, but this one looks pretty dope. I'll give you that, and I'd be super stoked if I was able to take this one home.
It looks so pretty.
Who's winning it?
It's not augmented reality like the stadium, but it looks nice enough.
I'm going to go ahead and go with, we're talking about these junglers all the time. I'm still going to give my prediction over to NXI or Tomio. In a lot of these games, they're very snowbally. And in these kind of solo queue-ish 5v5, they're a team game, but these are relatively raw players, so it's kind of solo queue. And that's where Tomio and NXI shine. We see these players get so fed, and they just steamroll the rest of the game, so they are looking really good. And honestly, we can name a whole bunch of people on Infernal for the trophy, but if I had to give it to anybody, it'd be NXI or Tomio.
I mean, you kind of mentioned the entire lineup there for Infernal. And when you go 6-0 at an event and the next closest team's 3-3, there's probably a lot of people on that kind of MVP list, on that, undefeated roster that are going to deserve attention. I'm definitely looking at Shady. I'm looking at Tony Top. His champion pool has really impressed me. The fact that he's counterpicking with Malphite, getting the Jaxes, and being able to play a lot of different roles on the team for the top lane. That's super impressive. Shoryu has been great. He pulled out the Samira and was able to make a lot of plays while Shady is not near him, for large portions of the game and not really falling behind while doing so. I mean, everyone on this team has been incredible, and I think it could be one of those situations where, because everyone's been so good, whoever has the best performance today could easily end up being the one taking home that trophy.
All right, well, I feel like it's kind of cheating, Mark, to pick an entire team as your MVP vote. But,
what do you mean?
I want to I agree with you, and I want to focus on one specific player, the mid laner Copy. This guy's coming in from 100 Thieves Next program, very young talent, only 18 years old right now, and hasn't been competing in the amateur circuit for that long. Was picked up back in January, and his champion pool has just grown and grown throughout the entire season. It's really cool to see him translate into a lane dominant kind of player. He likes to push his lane and then roam with his jungler, which pairs him very well with NXI, but it's also proving to be very effective with Tomio as well. So having a mid laner that's willing to not freeze their lane, not just farm up and wait for the late game team fights once they've scaled, but instead shove that wave in and then help out around the map, I think is very valuable. And for that reason, I'm putting Copy as my MVP, at least for now. We'll see how the games shake out today.
Yeah, his quick 2-0 in the finals, that might change things around, or maybe not. We'll see. So I have one final discussion topic before we go to our casters, because I wanna frame this conversation in terms of the LCS Academy amateur ecosystem. It's kind of multifaceted. I'm asking what's the most impactful lane here, both in terms of which players are good and dominating at scouting grounds, but also which roles are needed the most in NA competitive.
Well, it's not a lane. It is the jungle diff that is the most impactful
Jiffy in the
here.
Jiffy.
I'm going there again. Every single game in these scouting grounds games, I'm seeing the jungle just take over the game. Once you get ahead on these carry style junglers, we saw at Worlds too. We've got the Lilia, we've got the Graves, we've got the Nidalee. Once they get ahead, they can live in the enemy jungle, and they just take over. They're farming so much. It's not uncommon to see a jungler be 30-40 CS ahead once they get that beginning lead. So I'm all chatting jungle diff at the end of the game, each game.
Great. Ken, guess what's your role of selection here?
I mean, I think the jungler is the easiest one to point out just because we got some really hot names, but for consistency and variety across the board, I'm actually really hyped about some of the 80 carries that we're seeing at this tournament so far. Shoryu's a big one that everyone will have their eyes on. He has played in Academy before. We know what this player brings, but he's showing that he's the best 80 carry at this tournament so far. Jan coming in at a fairly close second. I think his Ezreal play, obviously fantastic. He's known in the amateur scene for being an Ezreal, not necessarily one trick, but an Ezreal main. If he gets that champion, he's very comfortable on it. But he's shown that he's now playing the Senna. The Senna. He's playing the Jhin. He's playing the Ashe. Not as well as Ezreal, but still elevating his level of play. And then, of course, we got Spawn, an incredible team fighting 80 carry. I think that he's just so fun to watch from a viewer perspective. I love his positioning in those big team fights. So I want to keep my eyes on the 80 carries. I'm not sure which teams would be looking to draft one after this event, but I think that we got a lot of talent there today.
All right, Marksy, I want you to answer as well. What's the important lane to look for here?
I mean, it's definitely, I think Alorum hit the nail on the head, just with how important we've seen at Worlds and competitive over the course of recent history. Just like, okay, if your jungler is going to pop off in this meta with Nidalee, Lilia, Graves, like, you're going to take over the game. And so that's definitely warping, I think, the event to give them a lot of attention. But I kind of hinted at Shady. I think support's also really important. They were so many roaming champions that get on the map and make big plays. Leona's, Pantheons, Nautilus's, what have you. And he's been the best at doing that by a pretty significant margin. A lot of the other supports are able to make big plays in the lane. You saw a lot of dives in those highlight packages because they're coordinating actually pretty well with the rest of their team around this stuff. But in terms of map play, I think Shady is a step ahead, but it shows how important supports can be when you have a good support, because it suddenly can spill over to the rest of the map like we usually talk about junglers doing.
Yeah, breaking the map open in the first 5. It's, you tilt them, you get your lanes ahead, and that person goes and carry. And at the end of the day, they'll still honor you because they're aware you roamed up at level 4, and that was all support diff right there. So that is what we have to say heading into the game start the day. Of course, we'll be back between each one to break them down as they happen. But it's time to toss it over to the casters for our first Honda Scouting Grounds games of the day. Desirux, take it away.
Hello and welcome to our first best of three. I'm Eric Deserex Batran, followed by Joshua Joshi Howard, and we're here to bring to you Cloud versus Mountain. Now, Joshi, these teams, not exactly in the standings that they want, but they got one more chance to really let it shine.
Yeah, and just as some of the analysts were touching on, this isn't necessarily the kind of event where you are super focused on the results themselves. Yeah, you want to show all the LCS coaches and scouts that you know what you're doing, but more importantly, you also need to show that you are coachable. You need to show that you can adapt to the situation at hand. And Mountain and Cloud, they've struggled throughout the week, but this could be the opportunity to show that, like, hey, we've learned from all the mistakes we've made, and we have what it takes to actually improve to the level that you need to see us for LCS.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be very interesting to see these two teams go at it. You know, Mountain standing at the bottom of the pack isn't exactly the worst team that it's not what their score would really let you think, because their series score being 1-5, they've still won more games than Cloud has won individually. They've had very competitive games. They've only been 2-0'd once, so Mountain can still very well be in this. Cloud has opted to take Blue's side for this as the draft is now underway. Aurelion Sol banned off the map.
Yeah, there's a couple things we got to touch on. One, yes, they've only been 2-0'd once, but that was by Cloud, the people that they are now playing up against. So we'll see if that kind of performance is going to come back to haunt them. But this Aurelion Sol, a lot of people are a bit surprised by it. If you haven't been watching the amateur scene, APA has made a name for himself with this champion. It's been something that he really hit Challenger with, and something very scary. It's been consistently banned for basically the past year in the amateur scene, and everything else a little bit less surprising. I mean, the Samir, Lucian, both very strong, and the Rumble also getting taken off, mostly targeted Captain Shrimps, less so Niles. So we'll see what else they choose to do. As we look at this draft, I kind of want to point out the fact that because Cloud is on the blue side, this gives Mountain something that they might need. Unfortunately, we didn't really talk about him during the Analyst Desk segment because, unfortunately, he hasn't had a whole lot that's been particularly impressive so far in a lot of these games. Gibble has been run over by Niles a couple of times throughout this series, and now he kind of needs some kind of favorable matchup. Looking at the gangplank that they were hovering there would be very scary because Niles has a lot of things in his pocket that would absolutely dumpster it.
Yeah, I mean, for Mountain, they have to be very careful with the way they do draft Gibble's champion. As for right now, they are going for just the jungle picks. And to no one's surprise, Lilia versus Graves. I mean, the only thing really left up after that would have been Nidalee. So wow. Graves is pretty much always going to be picked if it's left up. But Mountain opting to go for the Syndra. It's something that APA is very, very prominent on as well.
Yeah, also very unsurprising. You look at Lily, you look at Graves, Syndra is about next on that list. The Chamber's like, yeah, I guess this one's going to be in the game. So going to be given over to APA, has some lane dominance, has some gank assist by having the crowd control necessary to set up for the Graves. But this is where we're starting to see a little bit of prioritization of more unusual champions. And Leona, very popular, potentially the best support on the patch, but Camille, not something that we necessarily see as the top of the top. We've been seeing it a lot during the scouting grounds, especially up against things like the Jax, and I really like the fact that Niles is willing to pick this up so early, and with this Volibear coming through, it's actually a really good matchup for the Volibear, so I'm really liking the fact that Mountain were able to secure themselves this counter pick for Gibble, so hopefully he won't get run over by Niles.
Yeah, but do remember it is Niles versus Gibble. Niles has pulled out this Camille multiple times in the past, at least within this tournament, and he has done well with Camille. The thing about Camille, it's a very carry-oriented champion. Niles is a carry-oriented top laner. Gibble will have a hard time against this Camille, even with the matchup that's given to him. It's still Gibble versus Niles at the end of the day as we head into the second phase of the draft. Already going after the ADC, pulls the side of Cloud as they ban away the Jhin. Xerath taken off the map. Not going to see the Jhin Leona like we normally see from Cloud, who just love to take that combo on Andy Bendy and Otto.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that Mountain is choosing not to ban anything from Andy Bendy's pool, but he has a huge champion pool to actually draw from, whereas Spawn, as was previously touched on, a little bit of a smaller champion pool in some ways, and so we'll see what they end up doing. Naturally, when I think of Andy Bendy, the first champion I tend to think of is usually the Ashe. He's had a ton of success with this champion over the past split simply because it does what he needs to do. It allows him to play a champion that is reasonably lane dominant, but also is fairly self-sufficient when you're pushed underneath your own turret. You're able to play the weak side of the map relatively effectively, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mountain want to grab that here. The Vayne would be very surprising.
Yeah, but it does feel like it's a pinch right here. Over on the side of Cloud, they have banned away the Jhin and the Ezreal, so really pushing the ADC pool for Mountain to make up their mind. They are switching off to the Braum for now, not willing to roll the dice on that Vayne pick.
Yeah, I was gonna be very, very surprised if the Vayne was actually locked in, especially with things like the Ashe still available. And now we're seeing Cloud coming out. They already have a decent amount of magic damage. You generally want 1 to 2 major sources of magic damage on a team. And, ooh, okay, so we've already seen several more unusual champions banned away from the Cloud mid laner and Captain Shrimps, but now he's opting to go for the Fizz, and we saw him take this out, I believe it was on day 1 of the Honda Scouting Grounds, where he took total control of the game and absolutely popped off on this. And it's one of the characters that has a decent matchup into Syndra simply because you compress your E and ignore almost all of the damage from the unleashed power.
Yeah, it's the playful trickster. It's very annoying to go against, and I believe this was one of the last matchups Cloud win when they went against Ocean. This is what they took, and it was a dominating Fizz on top of that. 8, 1, and 6. That is very, very hard to deal with once a Fizz gets going, once he's able to start snowballing into the mid lane. But now one more pick left over for Mountain. Cloud have opted to take the Ashe. Mountain right now are hovering over the Draven. That ADC pool is pinched, but they opt to go for the Senna instead.
Little bit surprising me that they want to pick this up as their last pick, but hey, it's all right. It's still a good champion. They're going to have plenty of success. The thing that worries me about Mountain's composition, though, is they don't have a ton of control over how these games are actually going to be playing out. They don't have a lot of proactive crowd control that they can use to lock people down. They have a couple of pick tools in Syndra's Scatter the Weak and the Root coming out from Senna, but beyond that, they have to kind of overcommit to try and find any of these fights, whereas Cloud have a ton of tools that they can consistently use in order to try and get team fights started. They have the Fish, they have the Arrow, they have Leona's Solar Flare, and of course Camille on the backside is a fantastic flanking champion. So I'm a little bit worried that Mountain might fall behind and continue to fall further behind.
Yeah, Cloud, proactive comp, as you said it, and with multiple win conditions, they can go for the pick with the Ashe, or they can go for side lane control with the Camille. Over on the side of Mountain, I still echo your thoughts. It's not proactive, and this is a problem that we've seen with Mountain. Once they start to fall behind, they tend to do those bad plays around vision, but not just that, they tend to just sit and wait for the other team to make the mistake. It's something we've seen from Mountain quite a few times now. That being said, Mountain are great at punishing mistakes. One of the greatest players when it comes to that is Plux. He can catch out people who are overextended. But when you're just waiting for the other team to make a mistake, what if they don't make that mistake? Then Cloud can just snowball away with this, and that is where the problems come in with Mountain's draft.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how Mountain end up looking to play this, right? I mean, Captain Shrimps on the Fizz, I think, is going to be a major focal point for us throughout this game. Obviously, you know, Lilia Graves, we're familiar with this matchup in a lot of ways, but the Fizz into the Syndra is going to be something that we have to pay attention to, because if Fizz does well, Fizz is going to blow up Senna, blow up Syndra, and there's not a whole lot that anybody can do about it on the side of Mountain. But if Fizz doesn't ever get to that point, if we see it get shut down by APA and Zound consistently, then it's not really a champion in a lot of ways, and you don't really have to worry about it. So I'm expecting a lot of focus around the mid lane, which is a little bit surprising considering how much we've been talking about the top side of the map, which honestly, you touched on it, that's probably good for Niles. He's a very dominant individual solo laner, and when he's not expecting to get ganked, he can be even more so.
And that's what I'm going to be watching very closely. Less away from the top lane and more how the jungle influences the top lane. Rose, Thorn, and Zaun are great junglers. They're great at pressure as well. Rose, infamous for his early pathing. He can really set up his pathing to set up to where he can go, where his priority is, and just dominate that side of the map for the entire early game. Whereas Zaun is someone who is about pacing. If he can get an early lead, he becomes that snowball jungler. If he doesn't, he's very good at staying dormant and not losing any more kills. We're finally hitting the rift here, and we're going to see how that role does play out in this Cloud versus Mountain matchup.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's also worth noting that if you're not familiar with this player, Zoun, it's actually formerly Maryville Iconic. They played alongside Niles for a long time. They know the tendencies that he likes to have, and so maybe they can do a good job shutting him down. But Gibble's got to be careful. He walked outside the bush.
Oh, here comes the hook shot, gonna land onto Gibble, and they're gonna find a chain of CC onto Gibble, who's trying to flash over the wall. Will be able to get to safety with just a bar of HP left, but they're going for the dive, Joshi. They're still looking to pick up this kill with the Ignite. Andy Bendy will be able to grab first blood.
That was really, really clean from Cloud, and it is in a perfect place on the map, Eric. You see they get a kill for Andy Bendy. They don't lose anything off of that, and Gibble has lost his flash. This is huge. He even saw them right there. He saw that they were going, and then he did this thing. He walked off to the right side of their tri-brush, ended up going back towards the north, and unfortunately that indecision cost him really, really heavily because he wasn't able to put the necessary distance. And we were talking about the mid lane. The mid laner was the only person who didn't contribute to that kill on the side of Cloud, and wow, I don't want to call it after the first blood, but man, this is about as close as it can get.
To see Gibble go down so early, it definitely really hurts for Mountain right here. Gonna have a little bit of a pause while we deal with those issues, but yeah, it's already a good start coming out for Cloud, because again, it is Niles. Niles is a star-studded player. We already talked about being in Maryville, but Maryville have won tourneys in North American Amateur and Collegiate. I don't know if you remember 2019, there was a Collegiate Worlds, if you will, ICC 2019. Maryville were finalists in that, so that kind of shows you what type of level Niles is on. If you're giving this guy a lead, you're already in for trouble.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because, yeah, we have Niles who was there, but we also have Zoun, formerly Iconic, who was also there. Like, this is also a guy who had a major impact on that tournament. And we'll have to pay attention to how he ends up playing on this Graves. He's already been set a little bit behind because Lily is going to have a bit of extra experience as they go through that jungle, and we'll see how he actually is able to respond to the fact that his top laner might not have the priority necessary to actually support him, which is going to be giving a lot of opportunities for Rosethorn to, as we talked about, the very dangerous path and can move into the opposing side of the jungle with a bit more impunity than we had previously expected.
Yeah, gonna be watching that top lane closer and closer, and where Zoun goes from this point on, because if he's unable to free up APA, if he's unable to get APA going and try and help out that bottom side, then it does cause a lot of struggles for Mountain's team, because that is where Niles will thrive. Once you get him in the split push, once you get him putting pressure onto that lane that you cannot respond to.
So we'll pay attention to where the junglers are going. Looks like Graves is looking to full clear bottom to top, whereas Lilia a little bit faster is Spawn and Flux trying to go aggressive. Probably not going to find anything. Both level 2 now.
Yeah, the level 2 advantage came in from Mountain first, so that's why they pushed it, but going to be evened out. No real fight to come through as Rosethorn is able to grab his blue buff and go straight tank over on the top side. There is no flash for Gibble. Gibble is now caught very deep in this lane, just trying to turn it around on Niles, but Rosethorn will pick up the kill. 2 early deaths in 2 minutes for Gibble.
And this is a bit of a disaster. You notice that Niles basically didn't participate in that gank at all. He just walked away because he knows the only way that Gibble gets anything out of this is if he ends up finding a counter kill onto Niles. But instead, they're saying like, nope, Rosethorn, you got this. And now Zoun is in a world of hurt. He's only ahead 1 camp and he needs to find this duel.
Oh, Rosethorn versus Zoun now. They fight in the jungle. Rose trying to back off here. The autos are starting to come in. The flash out of Rose to try and stay safe. APA getting a bit of priority there. Going to be safer for Rose to leave.
Yeah, that was really close. Zoun actually might have been able to take that. You notice that the Q went off against the wall, but didn't actually get the damage down onto Rosethorn, and I think that would have been the difference in actually finding the kill. Unfortunately, fantastic dodge coming out from the Lilia. So much movement speed that they're able to play with, but it does reward Zoun with both Scuttle Crabs. He's going to have an opportunity to at least even up a little bit of the gold disparity on the map. And Gibble, I mean, to his credit, is still doing okay in this matchup, right? It is Volibear favored. You are able to get a lot of damage down, and you're just a much bigger stat stick than Camille is, especially at this point in the game. But it doesn't get better as the game goes on. It tends to become more Camille favored as items start to come through. And so, despite the fact that Gibble is technically heading CS right now, that's going to change as we start looking towards the 20-25 minute mark.
And especially if Gibble goes down again. His teleport was burnt to get back to lane. Niles has to back off, so Gibble does get some advantages just having that counter pick matchup. And he's going to have to use those as best as he can, as now Zaun caught out in his own jungle. The engage come through with the Zenith Blade. Shield of Daybreak catches the stun. Zaun takes a lot of damage, falls to about half health. Able to return some, but so far this invade has been successful. Responded to by Mountain's bot lane as they try and bring the fight to Cloud. Rosethorn is getting a lot of damage in. The exhaust does go out. Otto trying to hold down whoever he can. It's going to be Plux falling to Andy Bendy first. A flash forward going to guarantee 2 kills. And now Zaun caught out underneath his tower, tries to find the safety, but it's going to be a double kill picked up by Rosethorn. Off to the races is Cloud with an early 5-0.
Okay. They are just going to walk through. That was close. Andy Bendy had the exact number of turret shots he could take, calculated in his head. But you heard me gasp a little bit during that fight. And it's not because I was watching this 3v3. It's because off on the corner of the screen, Captain Shrimps almost died to a turret shot. His Playful Trickster came up at just the right time to keep him alive. And this is contributing to the fact that Cloud is winning everywhere on the map. And you look at the mid lane, you normally think, hey, this is supposed to be fairly Syndra favored, but Fizz is doing even. I like Zaun's early flash here, right? He is able to deny the early engage, but the rest of his team seem to actually want to fight this. They're thinking, hey, I have a problem. I have a pretty good early game skirmishing, but Zaun has already lost so much HP that the Cloud team is able to focus rather heavily on whoever they want to. Andy Bendy is able to consistently auto-attack the right target, and Plux, without the damage support from the rest of his team, ends up falling in Zaun with no flash, easy pickings at the very end.
I mean, one of the things about Otto is he loves to engage. You could also call that a con as well, because this dude really loves to engage. In this case, it's going to work out quite well as the teleport is now used on the top side. Flash available for Gibble. They're going straight for the dive here. Ultimate available for Gibble as well, but it's not going to amount to much as Niles is able to take him down with Flash burnt. With teleport burnt, Gibble is going to lose so much on this top side, but the response at a mountain is Drake.
Where was this Rosethorn previously in the Honda's Guiding Grounds? He's finally going top lane consistently. That is the 3rd kill that they've picked up on Gibble before the 7-minute mark. Yeah, they give over a Cloud Dragon, but let's be honest, that doesn't matter very much in this game. You have such a large gold lead only a couple of minutes into the game that you're never going to hit this soul if Cloud can play properly, and they've been able to show that they're able to do that consistently. Zaun picks up a couple of scraps. Yeah, he's ahead in CS, but he's got a death, and his opponent is 3-0-3. I'm expecting Cloud to start running away with this off of the fact that Rosethorn's early pathing, like you identified in the draft, is going to give them such a huge lead that Mountain might not be able to do anything.
And this lead is going to get harder to fight against as well. Rosethorn just finished his Runic Echoes, so that burst of damage is going to start to come through on that Lilia pick. You're still waiting for that crucial moment where Niles is able to get his Trinity Force, where his online moment will start to come through. So there's a lot of peak moments looking to shine through for Cloud once they get those peak itemizations.
Yeah, and I think as you talk about itemization, there's also a crucial item in Gibble's inventory. He's got the Glacial Shroud, which gives you mana, cooldown, and armor, but no health and no magic resistance. And notably, you have Rosethorn and Captain Shrimps. Yeah, Niles might not be doing the most damage to you at this point in the game, but you have no magic resistance, you don't have a lot of health, and both Lilia and Fizz can blow up this Volley Bear, so I wouldn't be surprised we saw a couple more repeat visits up to the top lane, take down this turret relatively early, and make Gibble's life even more miserable as this game actually goes on.
I'm very curious as to how Zaun's gonna path very soon. There's not much he can really do on this top side. It's being frozen by Niles, so he would have to head back towards that bot side to be able to find any more camps. The thing here is that Shelly is up right now, and Rosethorn is very much peeking at it. Instead, Zaun gonna choose to take the recall and go back for those bottom side camps. So that's gonna let Rose pretty much have priority on Shelly if he wants to go for it, and yeah, gonna start that up right away.
Yeah, where is Camille? Okay, she was just hiding underneath Volibear's portrait on the menu map there. It surprised me a little bit, but as you said, Shelly is going to be going over towards Cloud, and this is going to be giving them a couple of options, right? Obviously, we keep talking about Niles versus Gibble, but in the top lane. They've already taken a number of plates off the top lane turret, but the other person that you're really looking to get a lead in this game that we haven't really talked about since the game actually started is Captain Shrimp. So it looks like they're going with option A, so we already see the fish walking up.
Yeah, continue to get Niles going, knocking down this turret lower and lower. Captain Shrips coming up towards his top side. Gibble has been in a world of hurt for quite some time, getting caught out once again, uses the ultimate, amounts to nothing once again. Another kill on that top side and death number 4 for Gibble. It's been a rough game for him, Joshi.
Yeah, remember how we said he had no magic resistance or health to really deal with the magic damage burst that's coming out? Ends up hurting him really badly here. Turret ends up going down at under 10 minutes. And this is going to do a couple of interesting things to the map. Now, there's been some stirrings in the amateur scene that you don't actually want to take these outer turrets super early on. And the reason for that is now it gives Gibble an opportunity to freeze the wave about where Niles is standing now and be very dangerous. But APA going to be able to flash away from that. And it might give Gibble an opportunity to farm his way back into the game. And this forces a couple of options from Cloud. One, Niles can start moving around and impacting the rest of the map, but he has to impact the rest of the map or he's going to give up a lot of his lead. Or two, you start diving Gibble underneath the tier 2, which is a much more difficult task when the rest of the map still has their outer turrets up.
Yeah, so I think what it really comes down to is just Niles has to start being freed from that lane, and that's what you're seeing right here. He's headed straight towards the bot side. They're most likely going to go for a lane swap soon, and Otto and Andy Bendy just autoing away at this wave. They've done so well to just be able to maintain a lead and hold it for this bot side while Rosethorn spends all his time in the top side really getting that lane going. Pretty much every single lane is online for Cloud, and they could have their way with the map as they see it.
Yeah, this next dragon coming up in 40 seconds, and it's part of why the early Cloud Dragon doesn't really matter going over to the Mountain team. And this Mountain is also not going to be super impactful going over to Cloud, is because we're not likely to reach the point where anybody gets 4 dragons. Like, Mountain can't contest for this upcoming dragon. Cloud only want it so that Mountain doesn't present a soul wind condition whatsoever. And right now we see, I mean, Gibble, he's choosing not to freeze. It's hard as Volibear, right? Because his passive ends up getting free wave push just every time he stacks up his auto attacks. But Niles has his teleport available. He can be anywhere on the map, and he is so far ahead of Gibble that it makes this Mountain Dragon contest pretty much untenable if they want to go for it.
Yeah, now you're starting to see the pressure around here. Cloud can't take the recall on their bot lane just yet because they know the Drake is up. They want to get some priority on it, and that's what Mountain's doing right now, is they free up their bot lane to start getting the wards down there. But you have to be careful of Captain Shrimps and Rose. Out comes the Glacial Fisher. A lot of damage onto Rose, who's forced to flash away, barely able to stay alive. The heal comes out to keep him alive, but 1 kill picked off so far. Zaun's going to be the first one to go down. On the backside, a pick. It's going to be Spawn taking down Rose. This fight being brought by Cloud. Now Spawn, high health, but nowhere else for him to go but to the grave as Plux flashes over the wall. Cloud are going to take this win 1-4.
That was really sloppy, Eric. That fight was all over the place. But it's part of why I said the fight was untenable with the fact that Cloud did it super sloppy. They still come out on top. Like, pay attention to all of the resources thrown in weird ways. You see Spawn over here first off. Arrow goes and hits him. Fish misses. And now Rosethorn almost instantly bursts it out. APA was able to crash a wave at the same time and come over. Teleport finally comes through, but Rosethorn's almost out of fight. Otto's super low. Captain Shrimps has been stunned up, and Spawn is able to actually find a kill on all of this. Otto goes super low, and the fact that they have the damage to make up for all of these weird plays that end up happening as it all comes together is just kind of a testament to how well Cloud have done previously in the game that it doesn't matter. They are so far ahead. They pick up the dragon so they can deny... Oh, they don't have the dragon yet, but they're going to deny the soul win condition and just have such a large gold lead that this mid-game power spike you would normally expect coming off of Syndra is just not going to matter.
Yeah, this is starting to get a little bit ridiculous now. I mean, just looking at the gold lead, about 5k separating these teams. You already have the Blade of the Rune King done on the Ashe, and that's all she really needs to get going as a marksman. And then, of course, just looking at the kill scores for each and every lane of Cloud. Trinity Force just finished in the top lane for Niles, so this is where the pressure is on for Mountain, and Cloud are going to keep pushing it.
Yeah, and when you're hitting the Trinity Force power spike at 14 minutes, it's really, really early. 2-0-5 coming out for Niles, and a lot of this is contributable to Rosethorn and Captain Shrimp's play on the map, but the effects are still the same. Whether he got it himself or got it from somebody else helping him, he still has a Trinity Force now. He's still going to be presenting a ton of threat to Zaun, APA, and Spawn by diving onto them from super long range and having true damage to burst through any resistances they end up trying to build. This Volibear, on the other hand, he's got kind of like the budget Trinity Force in some ways, right? It's the Iceborne Gauntlet, which sure is going to provide a little bit of slows, but there is so much mobility on the people that you're trying to lock down between Rosethorn's movement speed and Niles' ability to dash around that I'm not sure how impactful it is, but Andy Bendy's got to be careful.
Ooh, Otto going to be caught out here. 3 members around him. Looking to shut down Otto. He will throw out the Solar Flare as the teleport comes through. Captain Shrimp going to be on the backside to try and fight this one out. Will not be able to find too much as he's forced to back off right away, but the kills are coming through for Cloud as they're able to pick up 2 consecutively. Now Pluck's on the run with Spawn and APA, trying to provide some backup here. They're able to get a good burst of damage going golden, buying time as Rosethorn tries to turn it around, doesn't have the damage to take out APA as Captain Shrimp's forced to run away, but it shows you that Mountain finally able to get a pick here. They're finally able to play off the mistakes of Cloud.
Yeah, I really like the fact that they were able to find Otto in that whole transition towards the bottom side of the map. And it kind of speaks to the fact that Cloud are not taking these fights particularly cleanly. It's been rather sloppy for the past couple of fights, and this time they were able to actually lock down individual members for long enough and take this brief 4v1 on a bunch of different people. At the same time, on the opposite side of the map, they end up losing a massive advantage as Niles didn't even use that! He still has that available to kill Zaun? Are you kidding me? He didn't need to do that to kill the Volibear, and now they lost the top lane inner turret.
Ooh, Captain Shrimp's able to hop away from the Scatter of the Weak as well. Now on the run, doesn't get caught out by the snare, just dancing away very, very handily from all those skill shots. But yeah, throw it back to that. You should have just let Niles recall there. He absolutely decimated Zaun. And now speaking of decimation, they're looking to decimate Andy Bendy. Out comes the Shark, able to land it onto 2, but APA will finish up the job onto Andy Bendy. Now Otto once again caught out in the middle of 4 members. No one to try and find him safety as Mountain find another pick, and it's another win for Mountain. They're starting to come back, Joshi.
Yeah, this game is not going the way it was supposed to. Like, the script writers are tricking me a little bit in this one, Eric. It's surprising to see how well Mountain have actually been able to pick off members of Cloud, and I think anybody who has played any League of Legends is fairly familiar at this point with what is going on. Cloud is like, okay guys, we've been having a bit too much fun, we're a bit too confident, we need to calm down a little bit, and Niles might be the next recipient of that era. Zaun comes down, but instead, mobility of Camille is going to allow them to get out. Because it's important to recognize that Cloud is still up 5,000 gold, despite the fact that they have been chain-picked for the past 5 minutes. They are still very much ahead of the game, but there's a bunch of gold going on to one specific member, which we kind of highlighted as the star player for Mountain. APA is now 3-1-3, has the Seraphs completed, and also has a Spellbinder. So these mistakes that Cloud have been making in these team fights are going to be very heavily punished by the Syndra being able to one-tap any of these squishy members.
And it's been one of the problems when it comes to Cloud. Usually you see really good individual performance and really good early pathing coming out of Rose, but after that, it doesn't really feel like Cloud has that much macro. It doesn't really feel like they've worked on that as a team. They really do rely on individual play, on just the pure skill of their players, and it's starting to bite them back as Mountain continue to fight back.
Yeah, and you start to see, with 25 seconds left on the clock before this next dragon is going to spawn, we have a very similar situation to the previous dragon that Cloud was able to pick up. They have about a 6,000 gold lead. They have some major item spikes coming through. You now see that everyone on their team, except for Otto, has already completed their first major item, and some are halfway towards their second. Whereas if you look at Mountain, it's not that all doom and gloom. A lot of people have their first item, but realistically, you're looking at APA needing to find these individuals to take them out before the fight actually starts, because we saw last time the gold lead was enough to allow Cloud to win these team fights, even with some of the kind of sloppy play that they were actually showing in the previous event.
And that's what needs to end sometime soon, though, because eventually you're going to get to the point where APA is just like, well, I pressed R and goodbye. You have to stop that from happening, because Cloud can only keep up with this type of momentum for so long before Mountain are able to make the comeback. Starting to see this now over in the bot lane as Gibble and Niles once again fighting it out. Gibbles was doing okay with the counter pick until Rosethorn showed up in the top side and continuously dived him. Now he has that 0-6-3 score line as he tries to make his comeback. And to be honest, he fights quite decently in holding his lane down. But now, an attempted fight coming through, Enchanted Crystal Arrow is going to miss. Niles starting to come through, looking for the flank, uses the ultimatum, goes after APA, has to back off immediately as Otto is able to finish the job. Gibble comes in, the roar comes through as the shutdown onto Captain Shrimp. A mid for mid exchange thus far in this team fight results in Cloud retreating and Mountain getting the map.
Oh boy, it might not be over. Mountain's still looking for something. All right, they shouldn't be able to find Rosethorn here, and they might. They're getting the auto attacks. He's going to be able to walk out finally, but okay, Eric. What is that?
Yeah, Otto choosing to go back in. Niles has teleported from the backside, looking to get the flank onto Sound. Sound flashes over the wall, and Niles going to follow. Still landing into those autos as Andy Bendy is able to pick up one onto Plux, trying to finish off Spawn. It's going to be Otto who grabs that kill instead. Now Gibble critically low will take down Rosethorn, able to get one Vengeance kill, but it's going to cost him his life at a double kill for Andy Bendy. Another one picked up in the mid lane. Cloud are back after picking up 4 unanswered.
Yeah, I really liked what they were able to do there, despite the fact that it started off rather weird. They were able to set up Andy Bendy, and this is what he does. He's able to play these fights so effectively by only making sure he's ever under threat from one other person. APA wasn't there. The game was a bit simpler. He didn't have to worry about that ultimate, but now APA threatening to flash over the wall and find a couple of kills.
Oh, Niles.
Never mind.
Just hookshot over the wall and find that kill instead. APA not going to be able to be the hero that he needed to be to stop this Baron attempt, so Baron will very handily go over to Cloud.
Wow, okay. Finally, Eric, we might be at a spot where the game is difficult to difficult for Cloud to give opportunities for their opponents back. As we take another look at this last fight, we saw, I mean, it was very odd. You see a lot of people moving around Rosethorn thinking, hey guys, can we do this? Do we actually want to take this? And at some point, they make a decision, yes. They focus super, super heavily onto Otto, who, remember, is like the one tanky member of this team, and that allows Andy Bendy to come in because he knows there are no cooldowns left to actually get on top of him. He knows that people can't auto attack the Ashe because he's going to be doing more damage than any of them. Yeah, they give over a kill as Rosethorn underestimates the damage coming out from Volibear, but everybody else gets cleaned up after that because they were able to play this pseudo front-to-back Ashe flank thing really, really well.
And now this is where it starts to get really, really terrifying, because it's not just Niles. It's not just Niles on Camille split.
Oh, no E.
Ooh, but looking to catch out Niles. Got to hold that thought. Will walk out of the ultimatum, get some damage back in, tries to take out APA. Will not be able to finish the job, but Captain Shrimp might gets knocked back. Yeah, turret is now destroyed over in the mid lane. Meanwhile, by Andy Bendy, 1 kill picked up. Captain Shrimps will fall. Mountain Drake, they're able to punish the overextension, but here comes the arrow. A slither of health remains. APA will survive.
All right, first off, I just got to praise APA for how they picked up the kill on Captain Shrimps there. It actually started with Niles going in and getting knocked out of his hook shot so that he didn't have any mobility. But this time, instead of Niles paying for it, I think it's Captain Shrimps who's a little bit disappointed because this is the second time this has happened in the game. Niles looked for an opportunity to dive on APA in the mid lane a couple minutes ago. Captain Shrimps also jumped in, but they had committed a lot of crowd control that didn't end up landing, and APA survived for way longer than he should have. All that said, though, as we focus back in on the here and now, 23 minutes in, Baron's still in Cloud's possession for another minute, and they're looking to find this pick for the upcoming Infernal.
Ooh, trying to get Plux right here. A lot of damage on Plux. Solar Flare onto the backline. Just going to slow down Mountain's escape, but ultimately Plux will escape with his life as Cloud look to set up for this Infernal spawning in the next 30 seconds.
Yeah, with that, I mean, there's enough time. If Mountain wants to get back on the map, it is going to be rather risky, though, because of the tempo advantage that Cloud have built for themselves. They have so much information about what's going on in this side of the jungle that Niles, I mean, okay, hold on, I've seen this movie before. Gotta get himself out. He doesn't have the teleport left. That might be enough for Mountain to actually feel like they can contest this dragon.
Niles is just going for the try again and again tactic of just really trying to just beat down the bot lane tower and make Mountain fall to his tune. The thing is, Mountain is definitely more wise to it. They're not just putting one member over there to deal with Niles. They're making sure the whole crew is ready to intercept Niles if he does go for a dive. That being said, though, Cloud are going to pick up the second Infernal Drake, putting them at soul point.
They really are. I didn't think we would ever get to that point, Eric, but yet here we are anyway. And I'm just so fascinated watching Niles play. I mean, this is part of why so many people in the amateur scene have been saying this is a guy to watch. Because he is so confident in his play, because he is so far forward all the time, he gets to do a lot of things that a lot of players don't know how to react to. It's like he's just standing there menacingly, and can we kill him? Are there people behind him? Turns out he's bluffing a lot of the time, but a lot of people don't call him on it, so we'll see if it ends up hurting him as this game goes on.
And now here's where things get a little bit tough. You now have double hourglass completed for Cloud Drake's side of the map, and yeah, you're trying to lock down one of these members. If you don't get a stun onto Shrimps or Rosethorn, it's very possible to just hourglass and negate a lot of that damage that APA can put out. So there's a lot of tools to utilize for Cloud in terms of trying to take down this match. And in terms of Niles looking to take down APA, yet to use the ultimatum, it's not gonna come out though. He gets stunned up, the crowd control's there, a kill picked up, a misstep from Niles.
And this is the downside of that kind of style that Niles is so known for. His crazy proactivity, his crazy aggression. There is no other point of pressure on the map. There's no Baron for them to try and take, and now Otto might be paying for the same sins.
Otto getting caught out, gets hit by the Glacial Fissure, but not going to be finished off yet. Andy Bendy looking to return fire with the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but not confident enough to continue that chase. Instead, just going to continue the map pressure. Over on the top side, Captain Shrimps pushing the top lane. Everyone else in the mid lane waiting for Niles to respond, all meanwhile to get that 1-3-1 back in action.
Yeah. And it raises an interesting question, Eric, right? Because this is an event where you're playing to try and get noticed by other people, so you can end up playing on these teams. And there's a question that is always raised by the play that Niles just made, which is it a good play? Is it a smart play? And it's honestly hard to say, right? Because he didn't actually have information on where any members of Mountain were. He just knew that his team hadn't yet created pressure and hadn't yet built the information necessary for him to make that play safely, consistently. But he was very close. Right? He was very close to actually going for that, and in a lot of situations where Mountain is responding in a more generic way, where they just try and preemptively stop all the pressure on the map, that play would have worked.
And I think that comes down to what I was saying earlier with the criticism of Cloud Drake's Team Cloud's macro. They don't put enough pressure onto other lanes to help Niles when he does do this side control, but you see a fight breaking out over on the bot side. Niles able to hook shot out. Ultimate has been used by Gibble, but the mid tower now exposed. It's going to be Cloud cracking the base as the Glacial Fissure gets cracked onto Otto, finding the root as well, but no damage to follow. Now Plucks on the run as Captain Shrimp's able to unload a bit more damage onto the tank. Here comes the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. It's not going to land. Solar Flare goes out, going after APA. The flash forward will not take out Andy Bendy. Now Plucks will fall, and so will his mid laner. Gibble on the run. Cloud have taken down two members. They've cracked open the base. They're going after inhibitors. They're going after more. Another hookshot coming out from Niles as he chooses to back off. Still able to get in a lot of that auto damage with such a huge attitude. He dives on in and takes out the jungler, and now Cloud, it's open season. They see the turrets exposed, and they're going to be happy to take one more kill on top of that one and take game number 1 of this best of 3 series. Cloud Drake, they showed up phenomenally, and let's see if they can keep up that momentum.
Yeah, wasn't super clean, Eric, but my God, was that a fun series to watch. And we got to see a lot of the things that we talked about in terms of how these individual players are expected to perform. Niles, super in control. He got a lot of early help from Rosethorn, who was able to path in such an effective way. Andy Bendy also towards the second half of the game, phenomenal positioning once these team fights actually started, and I'm excited to see more of what they're going to be bringing later on in the day, because if Cloud performs like that, they're going to make good arguments as to why LCS teams should be looking to draft them later on.
Well, we're definitely going to see more once we do come back from a break. But before we do go to break, we have a replay presented by SoFi. Save, spend, earn, borrow, and invest all in one app. Let's take a look at this game-winning play.
Yeah, and I just want to point out how Andy Bendy is willing to play so far back in a lot of this. You don't see it there. He ends up getting caught, but just prior to this, he was doing such a fantastic job, and Captain Shrimps able to punish the fact that APA having to throw his body forward in order to try and take this all down. And at the end, I mean, we've all seen this. The crazy aggression coming out from the Camille and the Fizz ended up rewarding him with a couple of extra kills. And the game at that point is just over, right? You find a couple of kills, you pick APA, the strong member of Mountain's team, and then they have nothing left in the tank.
Yeah, so overall, pretty brilliant play to come out of this squad, and, you know, props off to them for being able to take the game number 1 of this best of 3 series, but it's in the word right there. It is a best of 3, so we are going to throw it to a short break. When we return, the analyst desk will catch you right after the break to break down that game.
Hello and welcome back to Honda Scouting Grounds, where Cloud just took down Mountain in the first game of their best of 3. 1 or 2 games more to play in that series. And of course, it was honestly, pretty stompy, sub 30-minute victory. We had a lot of top and jungle difference early on in the game, and it started out with a very, very, very early first blood. I forget,
Right.
Alorum.
Right. So they lost the Volibear Flash and his life at level 1, and this means it's going to be rough for Gibble. Volibear is already a character that just auto-shoves the wave with his passive, so Graves needs to be up there really early on to counter the Lilia from getting up there, and as we saw, Lilia went up there at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds for a very early gank, and when that was happening, Graves was only at his red. Graves did a pretty greedy path. He did blue, Gromp, and Wolves. What Gibble needed to communicate to his jungle is that, okay, man, I'm flashless. We know this is a lane I'm going to shove because it is a winning lane for Volibear. I need you to be here as early as possible with your double buffs to look for a counter gank. And since it didn't happen, he got punished for it. And we saw that game. The deaths piled up. And their weak side of red side just did not play very well this game.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that newer players can struggle with when you move to the coordinated environment, because if you show weakness, it's like blood in the water for sharks, and they're going to keep hitting you. And I think that's one of the things you can point to, Cloud Drake team doing well was the initial game plan saying, okay, we have Camille into Volibear. The Camille wants to get ahead in this matchup, and it can be a little tough early. So you send the level 1 up there, and then you go for the repeat gank, and then you're kind of off to the races because, hey, Niles understood what he needed in this matchup better, potentially. Did Gibble need to communicate more? Was Graves just being greedy and like, hey, screw you, you'll be fine, This is one of those things where coordinated play will really punish you if you're not 100% aware of what's going on. And I think, you definitely got to give some credit to Cloud Drake team for being able to execute on these top dives over and over and over.
Yeah, and I mentioned during the pre-show that Niles, when he's put behind earlier on, can struggle to come back, but if he gets an early lead, is one of the best strong side top laners in all of amateur and collegiate. So we got to see that. We got to see a Niles in a very, very comfortable lane spot from level 1. You're up against a Volibear without flash, and you're getting a gank at 3 minutes into the game. So this is exactly how Cloud wants to play the game. You want to get Niles ahead, especially if he's on something like the Camille, so that you can enable him to carry. We did get the classic Niles where he did lose one kill in a side lane on the bottom side there, but he pulled 4 people to him, so we'll call that a pressure play. But at least he got off the ground very early on, and that's what Cloud needs to do if they want to win.
And of course, a lot of getting Niles ahead was Rosethorn in the early game. Yes, the first blood, of course, helps. Then the early gank where Rosethorn went for a more selfless jungle path, right? Red Raptors, top side very, very quick, didn't do the full clear, got the gank in pre-3 minutes, and it just kept snowballing from there. Rosethorn did a lot.
Yeah, a lot of coordinated plays with his team. There's a scrappy 3v3 in the bot side jungle that they're able to play a little bit better. And this is one of those things that you want to see the jungler getting out there and interacting with lanes, getting them ahead, because you just snowball topside, you go bot lane, you get a 3 for 0. I mean, that's pretty much a good game right there. It was a 5K gold lead 10 minutes in, and a lot of that came off Rosethorn. He was involved, I think, in almost every single one of those early kills. He had a great early game.
Yeah, I mean, top laner behind, right? Volibear had to auto push. And that's something I kind of want to just kind of dive into a little bit more, even though we talked about all the points, is just the coordination aspect, right? It's the one step up from solo queue, like just playing Clash with your friends, which is, this weekend as well, just saying, hey, by the way, here's how my lane works, here's what I need from you. The other side worked perfectly. Again, Lily has no problem going early Krugs, going for a greedy clear, like you want to get to Riley's or Leandry's pretty early on, and it's like, no, don't worry, like, yes, I'll be there. I'm assuming Niles communicated, or Rosethorn just kind of knew how the lane was going to go, but that gank actually always works, right? It's not like you out-mechanic this guy. No matter what your MMR is, no matter how good you are at League of Legends, if you're there at 250, that is always a kill for you and your top laner. And it's a play that you can understand, it makes sense, and it's replicable.
Especially with no flash.
Yeah, of course, the flash, of course, makes it even easier to make it happen, but yeah, there's a flashless top laner because of Invade going weird. It's like, oh, this is something that I can learn, that these players can learn, to just make sure you play around those lanes at the appropriate times, and that is just an extra step that it'll make you play better at home. It's clearly something that even these players who are challenger and solo queue will occasionally get wrong or get right, and it's a difference maker, and the game does snowball from there. I mean, especially these scouting ground games where these teams have been together for 3 days. It's not the 25-minute macro play that wins the game. It's the first 15 minutes where you're in the right place, communicating well. And that's the first basics of getting on a team is the basic communication of, here's where my lane works, here's what I need, here's who's weak side, here's who's strong side. I know as we were watching the game together, you guys had a lot of positive things to say about the bot lane of Cloud with Andy Bendy and Otto doing a good job. Kangas, tell me what you kind of saw about those two.
Yeah, I mean, well, we got to preface it by saying Ashe did get the first blood in that level 1 play topside. So already starting off the lane with an advantage. But outside of that, Andy Benny's the 180 carry that I didn't mention in the pre-show, and I was talking about the bot lane talent, and I think he took it personally because he really stepped up this game and showed off what he could do on the Ashe. There was a one awkward moment where he got picked off in the mid lane, but other than that, his position was pretty strong throughout the entire game. Was able to reposition team fights. He had that one incredible flanking play where he got behind the Braum and the volley bear when the Mountain was actually invading on their side of the top jungle. So I think that he kind of surprised me on this pick. I didn't expect Andy Bendy to be a really key carry player coming in here for Cloud, but obviously proving me wrong, showing what he can do when you give him that early lead on the Ashe.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where these games are going to be scrappier than your typical pro game. The fact these guys are all slammed together just for this week, as well as the fact that a lot of them don't have as much experience. You can expect to see some more mistakes in the mid game. And I think to your point, Andy Bendy was kind of a crutch for them when some things started getting a little sketchier. He was able to reliably put out damage in the back of these team fights and had some really nice positioning, like you were saying.
All right, well, thank you all very much. We are stepping away, but before we go, SoFi is bringing you the SoFi Meta Melee, a hybrid series of tournaments that is a first-of-its-kind experience. It will be produced by Nerd Street Gamers, and they're rewarding student gamers with a $50,000 prize pool toward investing, the cost of school, and in-game items. We're taking a break. We'll see you here after this.
Dreams aren't achieved overnight. They take passion, dedication. And even then, there are no guarantees. But for the LCS, that's the power of dreams. It means you never give up. It means you always play again. Honda, proud automotive partner of the LCS.